Hello, and thank you so much for joining me again for part 3 of this Rainforest Escapes colouring book, Colour Along in Watercolor. I have the saucer that I used to mix some of the greens for the leaves the other day, and I'm just reactivating it. If ever you've got dry watercolor, you can just reactivate it with a bit more water. So now I'm wanting to do the tree bark underneath the leaves, so I wanted to keep that green that I'd used in the leaves and mix up a brown so that the colors kind of go nicely together. That's one of the great things about watercolor and how to get your color to look sort of as if it all is organic to the page. So here I'm adding a little bit more of the sap green, and before that I add the vermilion hue just to make it a bit browny. Just wanted to get more of the green color in there and sort of slowly building up. I want a brown, but I'm looking for a warm, rich brown. So this was now going very olivey, so I added a little bit more of the leaf green, which is a brighter, cooler color. And now I'm going to go into this Cadmium Red Hue, which is quite a bright, it's almost a neon reddish color, and it's given me the kind of warm brown that I was looking for, a rich warm brown. And you'll see that the feeling of the paint, what's the word I want, the consistency of the paint is kind of like soy sauce. It's not terribly runny, but it's not very thick. It's quite a runny one. So I had put my brush in water as well, and I'm just checking the color on a piece of paper. This is not watercolor paper, and I like that color. So now I'm organizing myself, and I'm going to paint the bark of the tree, making my little plastic sheet over there, which I'm very grateful for because there are quite a few splashes that have happened here and there. So I'm using the size 6 round brush for this. This is the Finesse round brush, but any round brush with that kind of snaps back to a nice point is suitable for this. Excuse me, I'm just having a sip of tea. So I'm trying to be quite careful of the edges, and you can see that the brown is very organically comfortable with the green, for want of a better way of saying things. So I'm basically just coloring this, and I'm going to go over the little green plant as well, and just I'm going to color. I had thought a gouache, but I'm now thinking I'm maybe going to go for a sparkle or pearlescent paint to go over that in quite a thick consistency. So there's nothing very technical about what's happening here, so I'm just going to put on some music and speed up the next bit until I've finished coloring the bark, and then I can fill you in with some more of what's needed. So there's the bark finished, and you can see I've gone over a few things that I will just bring out either with pens or with more intense concentrations of paint. So now I want to mix up a color for the fruit, and I think I'm going to do all the fruit and the buds the same color. I actually think those buds are probably fuchsia buds, but buds and buds can look the same, and I just want them to fit into the color palette of the page. So I'm adding much more of the red. That's again the vermilion hue that I've added to that. So as you can see, again, using the paint that was on the saucer to kind of keep the page together. So it's got very much the same undertone as the bark, but it's added more red and so looks different. And then I'm basically coloring all of this fruit, which is perhaps a coconut. I've begun to wonder, or a breadfruit. I really don't know, but anyway, I'm just coloring it in this color and we're going along. So I'm going to speed this up as well, because there's nothing special or technical or that I feel that I have great information to impart to you. I do think when I'm doing a voiceover, and I find when I watch myself, I actually learn quite a lot of my painting technique. And I do think that I overwork the watercolor. So when I finished painting this first coat, I should either have left it to dry, or I should have just been done with it as it was. But I go over it again, and I try and dry my brush out a bit to mix some of the paint in. But it doesn't really do that. It lifts the paint. So learn from my mistakes, and when you've done a layer, leave it to dry before you carry on. So I'm going to speed the rest of the coloring of these fruit and pods up so that the video is not incredibly long, and put on some music for you to listen to while I do that. Apologies for this transition. I've had to delete some footage that I took because the lighting was flickering terribly, and I know that can disturb people. I filmed myself doing this detail, and I've had to delete it because of that, but I can show you some more now. And luckily there's still enough here for me to show you. I am not sure what's causing it. I have another light which I'm going to switch on now, and I'm going to see if that makes any difference. So I'll show you first of all, for this outline I used these Woodlands paints, and I used the deep moss color, and I used it in a very concentrated way. So I had sprayed my paint with water, as I do, and I used a very fine brush. This is the Winsor Newton Cadmium 00. I wet the brush in water, I activated the paint like that, and then I always sort of do it a bit on the palette as well, and then I just painted with it like that. So very simply done, not anything too difficult. For this, I will show you on these how I did that, but I'm first going to and for this little plant here I used a glitter paint. I think I showed you that previously. I'm sorry, it's now been a day, so my memory's left me a little bit. So what I used for this detailing work was maybe a minor cop-out, but I just went simple with it and used my Billow fine point pens and went over that with one of those. So just simply like this, outlining in a way, just to bring that detail out. So this is all dry now and not difficult to do. Just need to remove my glasses for this, strangely enough. These are not waterproof, so if you reuse water on this, one has to be a little bit careful because they smudge and become activated with the water. There we are. So that was very simple to do, and it just brings it out a little bit. I want to get onto the hummingbird, but I think that's going to be a whole different video, the hummingbird and the dewdrop on the leaf. So I had thought I would get this video done in 3 takes, but it looks to me as if it's actually going to be 4 videos. I hope you've enjoyed this color along. I've really loved coloring this piece. I'm going to use this for the stem here as well. And it's very relaxing just to go over these. Quite proud of myself actually talking while I'm doing this and managing to not stutter or anything. I have to be so careful not to get my head in the way of the video. I just use my iPhone to film with, and I use an app called Pro Movie. And then I edit the movies on a video editing software that I have called VideoPad. It's not the very best video editing software you can buy, but I like it because it's a one-off purchase. It's not a subscription. I find so many things these days run by subscription, which is great in a way because you can either use them or turn them off, but it's a bit like having accounts. So like your salary comes in, or your pension in my case, and then when you've paid all your various subscriptions, there's not very much left. So I'm becoming a little bit wary of all the subscriptions. One subscription though that I really love is for I don't know whether, I think it's a website, it's not an app. You get apps for it on your phone or your iPad. It's called Scribd, S-C-R-I-B-D, and I really like that because it's got audiobooks, it's got books, it's got sheet music books, it's got magazines and all sorts of things. And basically you pay a subscription, and then you're not messing up somebody's copyright, because the authors and the magazine owners, etc., get their fair share. So now I'd left this little bit out with this background color that I used for the bark, so I'm just using this. It's called Cavern, this particular color. And it's not quite the same, but I think the eye will go to it. And now I want to paint the bark here and the stem there. I wonder what color I should use. I think for this I'm going to go with another green, but I'm going to do it straight out of the paint palette. And I'm going to use my favorite Sap Green here. I'll just put some in this palette here. So you always, the thing that one needs to remember with watercolor is that it's called watercolor because it needs water. So you need to keeping your brush wet. I must say I'm not excited by this color that I used for the shiny little plant. Looks almost like a eucalyptus leaf or something. And I was thinking I might actually go over that again with some Wink of Stella, or maybe Wink of Stella will be nice. I'll see. I'm using the size 3 brush here, and I've gone out the lines. I was so excited yesterday. I got a colouring book delivered by Amazon. I'd ordered 2. I ordered autumn miniatures, and I ordered one of these Colour Questopia books, Colour by Number, which I only have one other Colour by Number book, which is a Creative Haven Dover book that I showed in my work completed in July, and I made such a mess of it. So that was the little areas are very small. So with watching things that people have colored lately, a lot of people have done things from the Colour Questopia, and I really, what is it called? See, this is now my brain because I'm busy colouring. I can't think. The stained glass window type really appealed to me because they were not so tiny. So I ordered one of those, and I'm so thrilled with it. I've actually already coloured 2 pictures in it. Simply, not anything like to get frantically excited about, but I'm really pleased with them. Now, because these are above this stem, I'm going to just darken the paint a little bit for the one behind it, the stem behind it. And I think I'll do that by adding a bit of Payne's Grey to it. Just a tiny little touch, so that one can sort of get the feeling of it being further away. I'm so nervous that this camera is going to be flickering again. I think I'm going to run along and upload what I've filmed now and just check. So now this video is really taking quite long, so I want to finish today's version so that you're not falling asleep. I'm just going to show you how I did the detail on this. I used straight from the pan this one, which is called Redwood. They've somehow fallen out and gone out of order, and so it's quite a thick consistency, the same as I'm just going to mix it up with that. The same as I did with the green. I use it onto the palette a little bit. I've always just painted like that. I've no idea if it's the correct or the incorrect way to do things. The trouble when one uses a very fine brush like this 00 is that it has, because it's so little, there's very little barrel, so it doesn't keep a lot of water with it. I'm just doing these little lines as detail here very finely. And I think I'm going to just add a little bit of cast shadow. Sorry, my voice has gone quiet because I'm painting. So I put that on, I rinse my brush, I dab it a little bit dry, and I pull this out a bit more. And then I rinse my brush again, dry it, and just add a bit of water beneath that so that it's got somewhere to fade into. I don't know if that makes sense. Excuse me, I'm busy sucking a peppermint. My mouth was so dry. So I'm just really using the guidelines that the artist gave, but adding a little bit more. Just a bit of detail. Want to give the 3D roundness. Whoops, I went out the line again. So again, rinse brush. I'm just putting a bit of water there so that this extra paint has somewhere to bleed out into. And now I'm going to do the same to this, but I'll do that off camera because I think the video has gone on long enough. I also want to mention that these two pieces of moss or lichen I used the Stabilo fine points for. So I hope that if you're coloring along with me, you can get up to this stage and I should be able to complete the picture in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye now.